Hey guys, it's Chris from Steeda, and today we're going to stop body roll on your 2005 to 14 Mustang with a set of Steeda front and rear sway bars. So what we're going to do is do a product review, and then after that an installation video, and most importantly a before and after of this 260,000 mile Mustang on bone stock suspension, and then what it looks like at 240 frames per second with Steeda suspension. So without further ado, let's dive in. If you own a 2005 to 2014 S197 Mustang and you're looking to reduce body roll, everything on this table is what you need to help achieve that goal. There's a lot to unpack here, but we'll go ahead and start with the front sway bar. It's an 1 3/8 in diameter, offers 3 adjustment points, and it's 10% to 85% stiffer depending on which adjustment point you pick in comparison to a factory 2011 GT. And in this instance, on a 2005 GT, it'll be even stiffer. Perhaps my favorite benefit on the Steeda front sway bars are the billet ends. In comparison to a factory bar where you have those pressed ends, it causes a weak point in the bar. We've eliminated that altogether by including these billet ends, and additionally, you have those 3 adjustment points to help dial in that body roll. Now, with the Steeda front sway bar on the S197 Mustang, you can reuse your factory end links. That's no problem at all. But for this particular instance, we actually included our race front end links. These are adjustable and allow you to really dial in the upwards or downwards position of the front sway bar depending on whether you've lowered the vehicle or not. Now moving on the rear bar, this is going to complete the setup for this 05 GT. So diving in, we have these billet rear end links, and on top of that, the mounts as well to keep everything in place. Now, if you have a 2011 Mustang with a 7/8 inch rear bar, this is 150% stiffer than that bar. However, if you have the 1 inch rear bar, this is 75% stiffer. Regardless, you'll be able to completely dial in the front and rear with this package on your S197 Mustang. All the necessary hardware is included for installation, and in addition to that, you have grease packets as well. But speaking of installation, let's get started. Front sway bar installation is really not that difficult on the S197 Mustangs, especially in comparison to S550. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with this end link, go ahead and loosen that up, loosen up at the bottom on the back side of the spindle here, and then we'll work our way over to the mounts on the other side as well. So to loosen up the end link, you wanna go ahead and grab the wrench, ratcheting wrench, if you have it, an 8mm socket to hold the end link into place while you loosen. Now your end links may not look like this from the factory. I believe these are these have been replaced at some point, but the process is still the same. Go ahead and pull this end link out. Throw that nut back on there so you don't lose it. Go ahead and want to do the same thing for the sway bar as well. On the back side. Now you may not need to take the end link off in order to remove the sway bar, but we have Steeda adjustable end links going on, so we'll need to measure these against our Steeda end links to make sure they're equal length. Then after that, you want to go to the other side and do the same thing with that end link. Now, I'm willing to bet that these sway bar mounts are probably factory, meaning that they're not only, 2005, so 16 years old, but they have 260,000 miles on them. Meaning, if you look here, you can see there's a crack right in the bushing here, and then nearly in the same spot on the other side. Not to mention, these bushings are hard as a rock. Needless to say, we go ahead and throw our sway bar on here, the adjustable end links with the brand new bushings and mounts. This thing's gonna handle like a dream. So we'll go ahead and grab a 15mm deep socket and start loosening. Do the same thing with the top. Try to loosen them both up relatively equally. All right, those are out pretty far. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. Yeah, this bushing is cracked all the way through on the other side too. I'll go ahead and leave this bottom nut on so it stays into place. Set your nuts off to the side so they don't get lost. Here's one side. And the second side, you just slowly let it down. Your sway bar's out. Quick little comparison between the factory sway bar and the Steeda front sway bar. The main benefits here are these billet ends. Like I mentioned in the product review section of this video, you have 3 adjustable points here, ranging in softest on the outside all the way to stiffest on the inside. Obviously, you can set those based on how your car's set up or how you intend to drive the car, whether it's road course and autocross kind of stuff or just the occasional streetable car. The other biggest thing here are these shot bushings. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead and get these fresh Steeda bushings lined up here and all greased up properly so we can get it installed in the car. All right, in order to get these things greased up, I highly suggest getting a glove because this is lifetime grease. It's very tough to get off. So we'll just go ahead and use your left hand to grease up the bushing. Because as the car turns, this sway bar slides back and forth based on steering input. So you want to make sure that everything's properly greased up so there's no binding. You could even put a little bit on the bar itself too. It certainly doesn't hurt. Really can't ever use too much grease in most cases. Let's go ahead and slide this on. Turn it around a couple times, work it in. Go ahead and get some grease on the outside of the mount. Perfect. You do the same thing on the other side. Okay, next up, you're ready to put your sway bar into place. Once you have everything greased up properly, you can go ahead and turn your mounts towards the car. You want the sway bar bending down in the middle towards the bottom of the car. You can go ahead and put it up into place. Almost there. And once it's kind of hanging there, you can go ahead and grab the nuts and get them started. Then grab your 15 millimeter. Now, I would not get these totally snug until we have the end links in place, but just get them a couple turns from snug. All right, go ahead and pull it off. Now you're ready to move on to the end links. All right, the end links. So the Steeda adjustable end links do take some grease through the fitting on the back side. We'll go ahead and worry about that after we have these measured to length of the factory end link. These are a little bit longer, so we're going to go ahead and spin these out until they are the same length as the factory. Now keep in mind this will be perfected once the car's taken to an alignment shop. All right, that's about perfect. Go ahead and turn this guy around. All right, in order to get these things tightened down, you need an 18 and a 19. 18 goes on the blue anodized, beautiful blue anodized finish. 19 goes on the lock nut. Doesn't need to be super tight. This needs to be broken free. Try to keep everything lined up correctly. Perfect. This can be a little bit of a pain, but basically what you want to do is get a good hold on it. It's going to be a lot easier if you have a steel grease gun rather than one of the rubber tubes. But you want to do 2 pumps. And go ahead and pull her out. And you can see it fill up around here, kind of bubbles. Now there is a weep hole in the boot itself. Don't overfill it. You don't want to do more than 2 pumps. But if it does start to weep, you can just go ahead and wipe it away. Go ahead and do the same thing with the other end link. Once you have your end link sized up and greased up, you're ready to put it into place. So we suggest starting with the middle hole on the sway bar. Just go ahead and slide it right in there. And go ahead slide it up into place here. And we have Steeda supplied nylock nuts, so just go ahead and get them started. They'll stop because then you have to start turning on them. Are you ready to tighten them down? And these are 18 millimeter. All right, next up you want to grab an 8 millimeter socket to hold the shaft in place, and then an 18 millimeter wrench to go ahead and tighten things down. Go ahead and do the same thing on the bottom. You go ahead and repeat the process on the other side, and then you're ready to move to the rear. Moving on to the rear sway bar installation. It's pretty simple. You have a mount here on either side, and then you have your end links going up to the frame rails here on both sides. That's really it. It's not too shabby. So what you want to do is grab your 15 millimeter deep socket. Go ahead and pull these off on either side. And then at that point, have the sway bar kind of hanging on its own here. Just make sure it's loose. Then at that point, go ahead and loosen up the end links on either side. Again, that's also 15. Get it loose. Then do the same thing on the other side. And pull your end links out. And at that point, you can drop the whole rear sway bar. And just like the front sway bar, you're going to go ahead and have to grease up the bushings on the rear sway bar. Again, a glove is recommended. So, you're going to go ahead and grease up all 4 of these guys here. Just like that. Just spread it around the inside. The most important part about getting the grease is on the inside of these bushings, because that's where they're going to be sliding around on the bar. You want to go ahead and do that for these guys too. You go ahead and slide these on either end. A little stiffer. There we go. Spin them around a couple times. Make sure the grease gets on the bar. Go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. And at that point, you're ready to put the bar up into place. All right, so when you get the sway bar up into place, you want to make sure that the part towards the either end is aimed upwards. Have each nut started, everything's kind of hanging there. One thing you want to point out, or one thing you want to check, is that these mounts are slotted, so you can slide them up or down. You're going to want to make sure as you tighten either side that the bolts are centered on those slots. Do the same thing for the other side. Then once you have your mounts tightened, you want to go ahead and get your end links up into place. Be sure to use the Steeda supplied nut on the end rather than these clamp-in, I guess you could say, nuts. Definitely want to use what we included in the kit. All right, next up, grab your billet aluminum Steeda end links. Go ahead and put a little bit of grease on either side of this polyurethane bushing. You get it up into place. Might take a little bit of muscle to get it in there. And get the nut started on the other side. You want the logo facing towards the rear of the car, up and down. Do the same thing with the other side. Go ahead and wipe away some of the excess grease. So it's not getting all over your hands when you're trying to tighten stuff. And at that point, you're ready to slide the sway bar into place. What you're going to want to do is grab your bushings that you've already greased up and go ahead and put them on the bar. Pull the plate off. Slide them up into place and push the bar back a little bit. You may need to move the bar back and forth a little bit to get everything to line up correctly. And that's good here. There you go. Squeeze everything together and get your plate on there. And get it started by hand. And don't worry about the bushing there. The plate is going to pull the end link closer to close that gap in the bushing. Do the same thing with this side. And after that, you're ready to start tightening things down. So what you want to do is grab your 13mm wrench or socket and start to get these things tightened down. You want to go equally amongst all three. You don't need to be terribly tight, but you want everything snug. And it's metal on metal, so you're going to know when it's tight. Go ahead and repeat the process on the other side. And last but not least, you want to go ahead and tighten the top bolts on either of these end links. And go ahead and get them hand tight to start. Do the same thing on the other side. And your sway bar installation is totally complete. So after feeling this car both before and after with a set of Steeda front and rear sway bars, it's totally apparent that body roll is minimized. The best part, especially about the front sway bar, is that you have the adjustability. If you don't like it and it's too stiff, if you're seeing understeer or too much oversteer, you're able to adjust accordingly so that front end bites as you're going around the turn. Not to mention the owner of this vehicle, Philip right here at Steeda, took this thing on Tail the Dragon right after we installed all the suspension and absolutely loved it. So if you want to outfit your S197 Mustang with the best parts, go ahead and visit us at Steeda.com. Then go ahead and hit that like and subscribe, that notification bell so you get notified right when those cool Ford and Mustang videos from Steeda drop. And don't forget the most important thing, speed matters.